Monday, April 17th, 2023. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Edwards.
Here.
Catsapatino. Here. Kozak. Here. Houston. Here. Sorry. Pansara.
I am right here.
Smith.
Here.
President Keeler. Here. Mayor Kern. Here. Director Hale. Here. City Attorney Kuzan. Here. Director Miller. Here. All are present. Thank you. Old business, item number 1. Sorry, what's that? Can we move stuff around in the agenda? Okay. All right. Well, since we have our friends from Sheets here, we can go ahead and jump to other business. New liquor permit, request for D1 liquor permit 65215090440 for Ohio Springs Incorporated, also known as Sheets, 732, 744 Grandview Avenue, Grandview Heights, Ohio, 43212. We had seen this previously. There were some concerns. We were able to get an extension. Director Kuzan, if you could update us, please.
Sure. So the request on behalf of Sheets was an application for a D1 permit, which is to allow the applicant to serve alcohol on the premises. After hearing some of the concerns that were shared by council, I had the opportunity to speak to Mr. Simon, who is counsel for Sheets, and he represented to me that his client has a very limited need for the D1 permit. They anticipate serving a malt-based Slurpee or slushy kind of drink in a sealed to-go container. Ohio law now has some provisions that authorizes to-go containers in lots of other settings as well. I think Mr. Simon is happy to provide a little more detail than I'm able to give. So he also had an opportunity to talk with Chief Stearns and with you to kind of help explain what the anticipated need is. And maybe
Mr. Simon, if you'd like to come up to the podium.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry.
Want to give us a little background?
Sure. Again, my name is Scott Simon. I'm the lack of a better term liquor attorney. I handle all their liquor licensing throughout the state. That's all I do. Similar to what Ed Hasty does a lot out of Grandview. In fact, I saw Ed last week at the Liquor Commission. So, make a long story short, we've had a beer and wine carry-out permit here in Grandview. It's not even been a year now, probably since May of last year. And so we have filed for a D1 permit as well. So the D1 permit allows you to sell beer for carry-out, malt beverages, as well as on-premise consumption. The only reason we apply for the D1 permit is to, there's a malt-based, lack of a better term, slushy that Sheets wants to do. We have not done it in any location yet. We do have some D1 permits in the Columbus area. Get Go from Giant Eagle has some locations where they do this currently, and basically it's behind the counter. It's a malt-based slushy or drink. It is sealed with a lid taped over, and the only reason we had to apply for the D1 as opposed to just maintaining the beer carryout permit is because the Division of Liquor Control said, yes, you can do this, but the way the C1 statute for beer, which is a beer carryout permit, the way that statute's written, it talks about selling beer, malt beverages in original sealed containers. This is not a quote original sealed container. So the only other recourse is to apply, which we did. We were on the waiting list, and an opening came up in middle of February this year. And so we have no intention of selling beer, malt beverages. I know there was concern. I talked to Chief Stearns. I told Joel, aside from the D1 permit, put that aside, we mentioned about some incidents, and so I had a good conversation, I thought, last week with him. I've been in touch with the security personnel in Pennsylvania and Altoona, PA, where Sheets is based. It's a privately owned company, family-owned company, to address some of the concerns that the chief had. So I think In fact, I talked to Jamie Ashurst, who's their head security personnel in Pennsylvania. I encouraged him to also contact Chief Brian Starnes as well. There was a few ideas that the chief mentioned. But getting back to the D1 permit, we have no intention of selling beer on premise. The statute does say yes, you can sell beer for carryout, for on-premise consumption. We have no intention. I think the chief's concern was, you know, we say this now, but later on, does that evolve into, you know, having full sit down for beer for on-premise? And the way that we can control that is we can set the price for beer and malt beverages. So by statute or liquor commission rule, we have to have a price list. There's nothing in the rule where statute says we have to have a price list for every type of beer. We could list 1 or 2 beers and charge, you know, a significant amount of price to discourage anyone from drinking any beer malt product on premise. Again, there's no intention. The only reason we had to apply for this license is because the Division of Liquor Control wouldn't allow us to do this type of slushy or malt-based beverage with the C1 permit. So our only other recourse is with this other type of license. So I don't know if I can hopefully answer or address any questions. I will say this, I'll be transparent about it. I told Joelle, I think she had reached out to Andrew Richmond. Andrew Richmond works for Skilton Gold. Skilton Gold is a developer that develops not all, but a lot of the Sheetz stores. When I found out about it, my contact in Pennsylvania, they put me in touch with Joelle, and I said, yes, I know Joelle. And I wanted to address, I told her to be proactive on these quote-unquote incidents. Aside from the D1 permit, I think we have to be proactive. We want to definitely be good neighbors, as I told Chief Starnes, with the city of Grandview Heights to address whatever concerns they have on some of these incidents. But what I was going to say was, push comes to shove, this was also to find out from council yourself if there are concerns from council members about the idea of this type of malt-based drink. I told Chief Starnes, said, well, you know, what if they just, you know, get the drink, it is sealed, and then they leave in their car and then just open the drink? And I said, yes, I get it. That's a legitimate, definite concern. Even if we didn't do that, that customer could do the same thing when they grab a single or a 6-pack of beer and open it up to when they leave the parking lot. That same incident can happen right now. I mean, the state of Indiana, they do allow the sale of alcohol at service stations, but it has to be, cannot be refrigerated. So the idea was to discourage, you know, someone's not going to have a warm beer. That may or may not be the case necessarily. I'm not so sure how much that may discourage someone if they're going to have
A
their...
warm slushy would work for you.
Yeah, right. So I think this was an idea to come for council as well, to say, you know, we take serious the whatever incidents have occurred out there, which I went over with Chief Starnes. Aside from that, to get a feel or feedback from council members. And I told Joelle, I'll just be honest with you, it depends on council in your position is, hey, we really don't feel that we'd like to have this type of permit because the fear is someone's going to drink on premise the beer. Then I just go back to my client, which I'm going to do after this evening, and say, hey, you know, let's reconsider this. And the other alternative is we just, on our own volition, just cancel this pending D1 permit, and that's it. Aside from that, we still want to address, as I talked with Chief Starnes, you know, what incidents have occurred over there. So he had mentioned about these quote-unquote flock cameras. They're license readers that apparently he indicated Nationwide Realty Investors uses over in Grandview Yard. He thought that could be helpful. So there was 1 or 2 other ideas he had mentioned. So, and I had encouraged the security personnel, Jamie Ashurst, to contact him as well and to keep me apprised as to, you know, what their discussion is. But I think Sheetz told me, at least the security personnel indicated to me today, that they were looking into these types of cameras, which is what he suggested. So.
Great. First of all, thank you for coming tonight. We really appreciate Sheets' commitment to being a good neighbor. That's important to us, and we really appreciate that. I personally love the giant jug of Diet Dr. Pepper you can get there. Not alcoholic, but I love it. I know there was a question raised about conditional use for this location. Director Colker, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to speak on that, but I know we had spoken on the phone. I don't know if you were able to speak to the attorneys for the development side of things, if there was anything there, either of you.
Yeah, I could address that. I did, Council President Keller, I did touch base with Andrew Richmond. I asked Andrew if they had, in some situations when they're developing sites, they do have the zoning attorneys they will use, but for land use attorneys, in this case, they did not. So Andrew from Skilton Gold, who's not an attorney, was the one that applied for the conditional use. And my understanding, he did send me some information when I read through it. My understanding, the conditional use that went before the Planning Commission was for a fuel service station was the conditional use. I'm not a zoning expert by any means, but I'm just reading quickly what he sent me in my conversation also with Andrew Richmond and Skilton Gold. So whether or not with this particular D1 permit, we have to go back before the Planning Commission to get another conditional use, I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that, honestly. I talked to him about it and he wasn't sure.
Sure. Director Colker, do you have any insights, or Director Kuzay?
I conditional use in Grandview, at least, is fairly, broadly considered, which is to say the full conditions of what's being proposed are considered. There's specific conditional uses that may be considered then within that, the specific attributes of that particular request. So I would just say that there wasn't any contemplation at that time about liquor consumption on site. And that may have changed the mind of the Planning Commission with regard to whether or not a conditional use would be appropriate in that location for this particular request. I don't know that, but it wasn't considered as part of the application.
Mayor Kearns.
If I may, thank you for coming in. Thank you for giving us that update. And we do appreciate the Chief Starnes told me that he had a very nice conversation with you. I'm aware you spoke with President Keeler as well as the city attorney and have been very responsive, and we appreciate that from Sheets as well. And all that said, the administration cannot support this for the reasons raised by the chief. This is a small town, 1.3 square miles. They've been open maybe less than a year.
Yes, that's correct.
35 plus arrests. That's a lot for this town. One of my employees was assaulted. There's a felonious assault against a police officer that happened down there. And I don't doubt your truthfulness and the intentions. It's just that that's not what this permit would say as to the slushy is only to go. It does authorize on-site premises consumption, and could, again, the policy could change tomorrow with new management or what have you. So it's not something we can support from a safety perspective.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate the comments. So, again, I just wanted, again, it was a forum for us to, as Mayor Kearns, mentioned her concerns, so, and that's fine. I
Absolutely.
understand.
I will open up to council for questions. Councilmember Houston.
Thank you. I don't understand how, you mentioned the price differential, how that deters someone from drinking on premise, because if you're willing to pay a higher price, $15 to take it elsewhere, why are you also willing to pay $15 to drink on premise?
We, President Keeler, Council Member
Houston. Thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
The price would be, so you have to have a price list. So all restaurants here in Grandview have to have a price list. They could change that price list every 30 days. But there's nothing that prohibits us, the permit holder, from setting a price so high. We could say, well, we only carry one beer for on premise. It's going to cost you $25, $30 per beer. I'm not so
there's
sure.
a different price on premise.
Right.
And then,
Correct.
okay, I understand now. Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Chair. Thank you, Mr. Simon, for attending. I do understand that, you know, Sheetz wants to proceed, and I think you're being very diligent along with the Sheetz organization to try and find out whether this is something that the city wishes to continue to entertain. Pricing carry-out beer, or pricing on-premise beer at $25 a batch or a glass will probably lead to more calls. You know, from my perspective specifically, I echo 100% the mayor's concerns that have been illustrated here. This is far and far beyond what we would expect and what we have experienced with literally all of our liquor permit holders in the city.
Okay.
What I would seek, or what I would be more personally open to in a future occasion or a future conversation or action, would be to understand fully not only what's gone wrong, because I still don't know, but what's being done to correct these calls for service, the obvious incidents that have occurred there. And then I would expect an improved track record, pretty dramatic, before I would be supportive of any kind of liquor change, liquor permit change there.
Okay.
I know, you know, I know you do this in a lot of different venues
Right.
across the state, but we've, in my history of, you don't want to know, too long, we've never had an appeal for a hearing. And this is a very, very unexpected result of having Sheetz in our city. So hopefully we can work through it. I understand that you're working very closely with Chief Starnes and with the security organization that, you know, is responsible for that site. But certainly there's got to be dramatic improvements in order for me to consider the situation to be remedied and then to consider
Sure.
an additional permit.
Well, I appreciate it, Councilman, President Keeler, Council Member Panzera, I appreciate it, because that's the kind of input I want to hear. You know, what the mayor indicated, what you've indicated, those are things we'll go back after this evening and first thing in the morning, talk with my contact at Sheetz, Pennsylvania, and, you know, determine after that whether we just say, you know, just put it on hold, and then separate again from the D1 permit.
And then
focus
still work on this.
Yes, right, still focus on, you know, how to, what you're indicating, address these incidents.
I would-
together.
Yeah, and I would just, I would echo that, again, I know it's not as stated, it's not your intent to, or Sheetz intent rather, to allow additional on-premise beverages, but once the license is issued, there's no control we have over that. You can, so I don't distrust that's your intention,
Right.
but this city loses its opportunity to have any control once it's issued. So you can do whatever you want at that point.
Councilmember Panzera, you know, obviously, we don't want to have any distrust, or have that, you know, we want to have trust between us and the city, obviously. So, you know, I'm going to go back to my contact tomorrow morning, talk to them, and then definitely be in touch with Joel and President Keeler about, you know, whether we just put this, table this D1 permit idea, but again, still focus on the incidents, you know, the mayor's mentioned and voiced, as well as some of the other council members such as yourself. So, you know, we obviously, we have to address those. I even told my client, you know, regardless, even if there wasn't a D1 permit. So again, I just became involved in the last 2 weeks. I immediately contacted Joel about this and, you know, try to reach out, to be proactive. I get it, because I do it around the state. I deal with a lot of different legislative authorities all over the state, done objection hearings, appeals, and all that. So, you know, we want to make sure we're in good graces with the city and be a good neighbor. I mean, that's, you know.
Are there any other questions? No? Procedurally, since we already did this, we got an extension, do we need to do anything else?
So,
Or do we just
we
need-
have until the 1st of May, which is our next council meeting, to, take any action one way or the other. And so if Mr. Simon says that his client is withdrawing their application, we won't have to take any action. If they decide to press on and we want to file for an objection, we would have to make sure that our response is postmarked May 1st.
Okay, so that we can wait till the next meeting to make a final decision?
Yep.
Is there,
Point of information, the next meeting is on May 1st. So, how would we?
It just has to be postmarked May 1st, so we will run an envelope through the meter before the
Okay.
council meeting.
Okay,
President Keeler,
Yes.
Joel, so I'll make this easy. I'll have an answer for you well before that date. So
Okay.
we're trying to figure out whether do we object, do we not object. I'll have a definitive answer for you,
Okay.
based on the commentary this evening.
thank you. Thank you for coming in this evening, and we appreciate looking into this regardless of the outcome, the safety concerns that are raised. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Moving back to the beginning of the agenda, we'll move to old business item number 1.
Ordinance 2023-11, an ordinance to approve supplemental appropriations for debt service obligations for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2023.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith, Chair of Finance, your committee met.
Yes, Finance Committee met on this ordinance, 645. The committee did recommend approval to council, but this is second reading.
We will record that as a second reading. New business item number 1.
Resolution 12-2023, a resolution to waive the provisions of section 529.07B3 of the codified ordinances for the Tour de Grandview Cycling Classic event on Saturday, June 10th, 2023 in the city of Grandview Heights.
Thank you. Just one quick clarification in the packet under the order of the mayor. Everything else is the correct date and time, but that one says Friday, so Saturday, the date is correct, but just as a point of order, that is Saturday, June 10th, for the street closure and parking restrictions.
Okay, corrected. Thank you.
Sure. Anyways, Mayor Kearns, sponsor of this lovely legislation, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, I mean, really, the only difference from last year is it's on a Saturday, which we're very excited about, and, similar event to the past. We hope to make it, even more of a party, having it be on a better day. Those of you who lived here a long time might remember it used to be all weekend long. We went to Fridays, and the Saturday is obviously a premium time around here, so that's what you have before you.
Are there any questions for the mayor?
Sorry, again, just point of clarification, there is one page that might be extraneous to this. The first page that says special event application, I think is actually for a different event. It's for the HOP events, it doesn't belong on this one.
It's just,
It just must have
Just
slipped
an
in.
error.
Okay. We will just ignore that one for when we're doing the hot resolution. Are there any motions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second, clerk please call the roll.
Edwards?
Yes.
Katsipatinos?
Yep.
Houston?
yes.
Kozak?
Yes.
Panzera?
yes.
Smith?
Yes.
President Keeler?
Yes.
Resolution 12-2023 has been approved.
Thank you. New business item number 2.
Ordinance 2023-12, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and director of finance of the city of Grandview Heights to enter into an incentive agreement with Fortuna Bank to provide economic incentives to locate operations of this woman-owned bank within the city and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Director Miller or Mayor Kearns, would you like to speak on?
It's a bank that's an organization, it's a startup, they want to locate here. There are very few of these. It's a unique model. There are very few women-owned banks across the nation. I want to say double digits, like
Handful,
40,
yeah.
more than 20, fewer than 100. One of the owners lives in Bexley. You may have read some articles. They're specifically interested in a walkable, amenity-rich community with its own police force, so we want it over Bexley. But all joking aside, they really want to be at Southern Station. high visibility, it's got, say, a brand new space, really, nice, business and financial services and insurance type professional services district. So we are recommending a similar incentive to what we have done in the last 6 months and a year, for several others. 25% refundable credit on payroll for up to 10 years. This is, exclusive of net profits, payroll tax only. And, what else can I tell you? It's, again, it's similar terms, and we're excited to welcome them to the town.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, we will record that as a first reading, and we will assign that to economic development. New business item number 3.
Ordinance 2023-13, an ordinance to approve the transfer of funds from the general fund and make appropriations from the general improvement fund 350 for expenditures related to construction of the city's new fire EMS, police, and administrative services facility and the relocated Grandview Center at McKinley Field Park facility and declaring it an emergency.
Thank you. Finance Chair Smith or Director Miller, would you like to speak on this legislation?
I can talk about it. This is the next step in appropriations for our municipal building and parks project. So far, council has appropriated some funds, but not quite the entire amount that the entire project costs. We're narrowing in on finalizing the project estimates with the, construction manager and with the architects, but this is additional funding that we see that we're going to need based on the current project budgets. So currently, the municipal building is at 31 million, the Parks and Rec building at 3.5 million, and then the 1016 Grandview Avenue at 1 million, which gives us a total of 35,500,000. So this is appropriating an additional 2.5 million on top of what you've already appropriated.
Anything to add, Chair Smith?
There's 2.5 on top of the 6 million that we already.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Nothing more.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, we will record that as first reading and assign it to finance. New business item number 4.
Ordinance 2023-14, an ordinance authorizing the grant of job creation tax credits for businesses within the urban renewal site, authorizing the execution of job creation tax credit agreements between the city and businesses within the urban renewal site, authorizing other necessary action related thereto, and declaring it an emergency.
Thank you. Mayor Kearns, legislation.
This is a legislative package related to the Grandview Yard development and our public-private partnership with Nationwide Realty. There's 2 components before you. One is a tax credit ordinance. The second is the development agreement amendment. Just to sort of provide overview here, we are well into our 2nd decade of a successful partnership, and the performance here has really exceeded our expectations and the projections. We had the COVID pandemic, and that really shifted how and where people work. We have open lines of communication with our partner. There are a number of employers down there in the yard that have shifted, at least in part, to hybrid, and that's affected, obviously, the opportunity there for us, as well as the opportunity to make the rest of the machine work, so to speak, in terms of the agreement. So we are going to tweak it here. Basically 2 components of this. It's complex, but the proposal before you that we have in spirit agreed to with our partner will allow them to continue leasing to new tenants while we increase our revenue to at least comparable to what was projected pre-pandemic. 2 components are that first, there's a 40% tax credit, income tax credit on payroll tax only, not net profits, up from the previous agreement of 25%, but comparable to what was already available for certain first generation tenants. Second part is an increased share of income taxes that's generated there going to the city, increased beyond what we are receiving now, thereby increasing our cash flow and essentially, making us again be performing comparable to what was projected. component to mention that this is really an adjustment to the income tax side only, not the property tax side. The agreement with the schools and the opportunity there is not changed. And we can answer any questions you may have or please further discussion in committee. However you want to proceed.
Are there any questions at this time? All right, we will record that as a first reading and we'll assign that to economic development. New business item number 5.
Ordinance 2023-15, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a second amendment to the amended and restated development agreement, approving related matters and declaring it an emergency.
Thank you. Since these two are related, is there anything else to add, Mayor Kearns, Board Director? All right, we'll record that as a first reading and that also will be assigned to economic development. Other business, we already did the liquor permit. Are there any comments from council members?
I did want to ask, this isn't related to anything tonight, but a while back we had talked about, there were some new vehicles, Megan, I think you were looking at, and I wondered, you talked about that you had, the EVs weren't going to be a possibility, but you looked into some hybrids, and I just wondered whatever happened with that.
Our building department is looking at vehicles. It is incredibly difficult to find anything. He has reached out to all the contacts on state purchasing and has struggled. I don't know that any hybrids are available, and even regular vehicles, he's struggling to figure out what he can purchase because there's so little supply and large demand. It's really been a struggle, and it's actually something that we probably will come to council in the next month or two to ask for additional appropriations because we budgeted $28,000 for his vehicles and there's nothing available in that price range. So he has been searching and struggling. We don't have really a very good answer right now. He may have to place an order and then you see if something comes in that matches what you want, then you get it. But it's just an awful situation right now in ordering vehicles. So we did explore all that, and he understands that it's important to council to, find hopefully a hybrid. We just have to see if there's anything available.
Okay, just to clarify, he is Director Hughes, correct? Or
Director Mazzara.
Mazzara, okay.
Yes.
Are those folks listening at home, just to clarify?
Yes, Director Mazzara.
Okay.
Yes,
Councilmember.
building on that, a clarifying question also, how does that fit within our budgeting process if we have to, put an order in for something that might come 18 months down the road?
We typically, like the fire truck and the medics,
Yeah,
we approve.
That's right, we did that for those.
Yes,
Okay.
because we're committing in advance.
Yeah.
We had some cruisers. This first happened really with the cruisers where Chief Stearns was given like 2 days to place an order. So he placed the order knowing that if council didn't approve the appropriations, somebody else would end up purchasing the vehicles because the demand is so very high.
Mhm.
So we're kind of working in a weird situation right now. Ideally, we will have the budget in place and then place the order,
Mhm.
but because demand's high, we can always get out of an order if council would not approve. But we don't intend to do that. I mean,
Mhm.
we typically know in advance, but we need to reevaluate just completely how we're purchasing vehicles.
I would also say we can get out of it if it's a cruiser. I don't know how that would work with
Right.
other vehicles. Cruisers have a special demand on them that no other type of vehicle has.
Mhm.
So it would potentially be a trickier situation if we were to go to different types.
Right, and it's just a weird situation too for him because he can't even order a 2023 right now. I think in May, he will be able to order a 24.
Mhm.
So we're looking at all different options.
Thank you. Councilmember Panzera.
I just had a quick question, follow up. Sorry, did you?
No, go ahead.
How many vehicles, what kind of capital cycle are we on for the building department?
Well, this will be replacing 2 2009 Focuses. His other vehicle is a retired Ford Taurus Cruiser.
I think there's a 16-year-old in town who would be happy to buy a car.
Well, they will be on gov deals as soon as we find replacements, but
My
they're,
question's answered.
yes. Yes.
All right, Councilmember Kozak.
And so there's trouble with all types, like hybrid or like not hybrids. so either way, there's a lag time that will need to be addressed. It's not like
Yes.
he
And
has.
I think they told him he couldn't even order a hybrid at this point.
Do they need cars?
Yes, they do. It's
It
a
was
long
never
list.
all bicycles.
They're 13 years old.
Yeah.
I was wondering if
Then he
we
has to
could
work.
change our cap
Cycle.
cycle a little bit, but no, not really.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, all right. Thank you for that lively discussion. All right.
Yeah.
Are there any other comments, questions, thoughts? No? All right, we are adjourned.